I didn't know if she was your secretary assistant.
My AI assistant.
Yeah, yeah, Darlene.
Yeah, I use that a lot.
Who was the one in Meet the Robinson?
So even in a meeting like this, we have people sitting in the back row. Is this
Oh
how?
yeah, always. But Stephen's here, and I think we're about ready to go. If you want to start.
Yeah, great. Can you just give me a quick rundown of everyone in the room? Just maybe give names. Not that I'm going to remember them, but and just
Yeah,
maybe like, do you have a role at the church? How are you serving?
yeah. I get we
Rob, I
start at
guess.
the front and go around.
Yeah,
Rob, Pastor Elder, you know me.
yeah,
Stephen over here on the other end.
yeah.
I'm off camera here.
I see that.
One of the elders, yeah.
Jeremy Slate, one of the elders.
Reese Van den Heuvel, I'm one of the elders.
Hey, you remembered.
Mike Clark, one of the elders.
We'll go back around this way to get this road.
I'm Phil Millich, none of the elders.
I'm Jim Paxton, the deacon.
Go ahead.
Ursula Fritz, just help with outreach here and there.
Superstar, superhero extraordinaire. She didn't bring her cake tonight.
Yep, Chris Fritz, one of the elders.
Lindell Moe, one of the deacons.
John Haraker, one of the deacons. Matt Mitchell.
Chris Tifo.
Great. It's about everybody here right now. We may have some more trickle in.
Yeah. Fantastic. And then, okay, so let me share my screen. Rob, I forward you on 4 documents that we're going to walk, like I'm going to kind of summarize them for you today. And then when we're done, I'm going to send you the summary that I'm walking through. We usually don't give this until afterwards, because if we don't, then everybody sits down and looks at the paper and not really a part of the dialogue and conversation. So you guys can see this okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Hey, let me pray for us and then we'll jump in. Okay. Lord, thanks for some time with our friends here from Harbour Shores, and pray that this information will be useful to be able to just help make wise decisions that lead to more gospel impact in their communities. Lord, we love you. Thank you for all you do for us in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Just move this over here. Okay. There we go. Okay. So in this document, we did let me say before we jump in that I hope that there's going to be a little bit of a dialogue here, that this is meant to provoke questions and talk back and forth a little bit. If not, we're all going to get really bored. I'm just telling you guys, you're going to be glad you're in the back row and you can fall asleep or something. This is us pulling data that we purchased from a company called Mission Insight. And then we filter that with a couple other sites. It's called the ARDA, the Association of Religious Data Archives. There's a site called peoplegroups.info. And there's a data US government kind of site that we use as well. And so this is us looking from the outside. You guys live there. You guys are part of the community. Some of this stuff that we're going to walk through is you're probably going to go, that makes a lot of sense and that's helpful. And there could be some of it that you're like, I don't know if I really feel that or see that. Hold some things with an open hand and filter it with your experience. But also realize that sometimes it can be like the frog in the kettle, where your experience is you're just becoming anesthetized to the surrounding community as it grows. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so we did 7.5 miles around the church. And you can tell from this picture here, and we'll zoom in here in a second, but All those little dots are people that we mapped from your church. Okay. The U.S. Census Bureau says that the average drive time for those in Cicero is 25.1 minutes. Hamilton County is slightly higher, 25.8 minutes. This is what we call our drive time tolerance. This is what people are used to driving for work. It doesn't necessitate that they'll drive that far for church. And in a lot of ways, we probably wouldn't recommend that. That's why, I tried to tell you guys to go smaller, because we're trying to say, as we look at the geography of why God placed us where he placed us, what does it look like to own the lostness of our surrounding community? Not like we can create other circles around Indianapolis, but what is it like directly around our church? And so just because someone will drive 25 minutes normally for work, and they may drive that for work or church, doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right thing to do, right? Not telling you should tell people to leave your church if they drive longer than that. But if you're mobilizing people for the mission of Christ and not just coming to sit and be a hearer, you have to think like them reaching their neighbors. Are they going to ask their neighbors to drive 30 minutes to church, right? So this is kind of a cool map. A couple maps that we're able to export out from Mission Insight. Let me see if I can make these just a little bit bigger for you guys. Whoops. Jumped ahead for some reason. So the green, your dot's kind of way down in there. The green would be kind of a 10-minute drive. The orange is about 20 minutes. You can kind of see that your circle there is about around the 20-minute mark. So light blue would be 30 minutes. Red, you probably have some people coming from around there. It's 40 minutes. It's just I kind of think it's kind of a cool map to see kind of where the roads are and this sort of thing of how people are driving. So you can kind of see here again that your 7.5 miles is in that kind of orangey area, which is about 20-minute drive. Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions on that?
No.
Okay.
No surprises there, more from the south side there of that circle.
Surprises from the south side?
Yeah, I said no surprises that we have more coming from the south just because it's more populated.
For sure. Yep. Here's a couple more kind of, we'll go a little bit further out there, but then closer in, you kind of see these dots. This is where, and again, you guys got some people coming from almost Zionsville, and even further down, Fishers, Carmel, but there's a large percentage concentration inside that 7.5 miles, which is great. Okay. We'll get more into detail on the people inside that here in just a little bit. Okay. So the Mission Insight Executive Report. So again, we sent you 4 documents. The first one's called the Executive Insight Report. And the Executive Report is the main one we're going to look at first. It's based on these 12 insights. So population, racial, age, school age, house, all this kind of stuff, all the way down. Insight number 12 is called religious program or ministry preference. That's pulled out into 2 separate documents. And that's something that's called the Quadrennium Report. It's the largest national religious survey done every 4 years. Now, unfortunately, I'll be glad to send you guys the documents once they're done, but they're doing them right now in 25. So the numbers we have are from 21, but they're done every 4 years. So once they get them updated, I'll be glad to run the report again and just send them to you guys. Okay.
Yep.
So number 1, population, household trends. Here it is. Estimated in 2024, there's 115,000 people, almost 116,000, 7.5 miles around your church. This, at the very end of this, we're going to kind of share a few things that we had. One time a pastor asked us, can you give me a summary of your summary? And so we'll talk at the end about 3, 4, or 5 things that kind of step up, or like leap off the page to me. This is one of them. You guys have an unbelievable opportunity to reach lost people with the gospel.
Mm.
And it's you know this because you live there, but it's growing significantly. So
Yeah.
it's estimated about a 10% increase in the next 5 years. So honestly, a small town is going to grow in this area in the next 5 years. Now, again, these are projections. There's always things that could sway this. Just so you know, the expected growth rate for the state of Indiana is 1.88%.
Wow.
So your area, that Noblesville, Westfield area, like up in there, it's just, and I know it because I've been around there some, and I know of friends that live out that way in Zionsville, and I know it's growing. So 10% growth over like year after year is significant. Is this what you guys feel?
Yeah, I just didn't realize it was that much.
Yeah. So if you figure, I mean, almost 12,000 people move into the area in the next 5 years. I mean, from 24 to 29.
Yeah.
Plan, strategy. Like, what are we going to do? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number 2, racial ethnic trends. So almost 85% white, 5.5% Hispanic, Asian, Black, a little bit. Now, you say like, okay, 85% white, okay, it's primarily white. So 5.5% Hispanic. Okay, that doesn't seem that much, but and so this is the insight report here. When you talk about 5.5% doesn't seem like a lot, but there's 6,000 Hispanics.
Mm-hmm.
And this would be recorded, documented estimates.
Mm-hmm.
So, and projected to increase by 2029. So I say that because there's probably still opportunities to reach primarily Hispanics, but you also have some Blacks and Asians in that area as well. Now, this is an image that's pulled from, oh man, every time I zoom in, it like jumps. Sorry. So this is like an image zoomed in from the ARDA, Association of Religious Data Archives. And the way you can see, the all red means it's primarily at least 80% white. Okay. The more, so this white with the red lines would be 50 to 79% white. This yellow down here in Westfield would be no majority kind of area. So, the closer you get down into, closer to Fishers and Westfield, and, what you're experiencing is more diversity. So is this primarily what you guys sense and feel there?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do any of you have neighbors who are non-white?
Yes.
What are the main people groups that you're seeing?
Hispanic and Black. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Good. By the way, when we talk about the Arctic, because we'll come back to this, we searched 7.5 miles, and they do them by census blocks. So you'll see like here in this corner, there's a block that goes outside that yellow or your dotted 7.5 mile line. Because if it touches any part of a census block, it includes the data from the whole census block. So it does go down into even towards Fishers here. So all the black lined is what the ARDA is searching. Okay. Average age 39.2. The Indiana state average is 40.3 currently, so it's a little bit younger than the state average of Indiana, and obviously projected to increase. Now, this picture think of this as not every 5 or 10 years. This is called phase of life. So 0 to 4 is kind of newborns, 5 to 17 are school age kids, 18 to 24 are college starting careers, 25 to 34 are kind of like new careers, getting married, that sort of thing. 35 to 54 raising families, 55 to 64 empty nesters, 65 plus retired. So as you see this picture, the blue is 24. And again, these are projections. The orange is 29 and the gray would be 34. What do you see here?
Aging population,
A what?
an aging population.
Yeah. I mean, we see that everywhere. The boomers are, people are moving from that 55 to 64 into that 65 plus fairly rapidly.
Big jump in that 25 to 34.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it kind of does a camel effect. We've got kind of two humps there, the
Yeah.
younger and the older, and the big gap in the middle.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, you see a big increase in the 25 to 34 percentage wise. And maybe that's because people are moving out because maybe there's parts of your area that are more affordable, as the city continues to go out. So do you have a lot of like starter homes? You see people getting their first homes out in your area?
Our church?
Not so much anymore.
No?
More, there's a lot of new apartment buildings coming up.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, we do see tons and tons of new neighborhoods going in, but it seems like they're a little pricey, to think about someone getting to their first home, right?
Yeah.
So we have lots of new neighborhoods going in, but they're not cheap.
Okay.
But multifamily housing is the big thing, which is the new starter home.
Yeah.
And those are going up by, I work with a concrete company and that's the biggest growth area in building.
With like in-law suites and apartments attached to homes, stuff like that.
Apartments and condos.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I see here is, obviously, 65 plus is growing rapidly. The 55 to 64 is growing, but so is the 35 to 54. And, that's still your largest segment. That's like families, right? And that kind of explains a lot about, why there's so many students in your area. Even though like the student population looks like it's projected to slightly decrease. We're talking it's minuscule decrease. I would almost call it stable. I wonder if there's this projection that 25 to 34 is that people are having less and less kids. And they're starting to have kids later in life than what they used to. So what, are you like helping the population?
Yeah. A little bit. That's not my fault. That curve's not my fault. I'm trying to take care of that all by myself.
Way to go. All right. Yeah, I wish we could go. My wife and I talked about this before, like maybe a couple of years ago. Like if we could go back and do it again, would we have the same or more? We have 3 kids. And we both said, now we didn't say less because then like, who are you going to cut? So we both said more. We would absolutely have had more. And yeah. So I think this is healthy. You see a healthiness across the board in all these phases of life. And I think it should be exciting. School age kids. Oh, I guess we didn't talk about that yet, but we'll talk about it now. 21,000 school age kids in your area, 7.5 miles around your church. Stop and just think about that. 21,000 students. And yes, there's really slight decreases that are projected in the next 5 years, but I mean, so it goes from 21,430 to 21 or 2,500. I mean, this would be another one that will pop up at the end as a reminder that, hey, there's such opportunities to minister to families, students, reaching kids who are making decisions that impact the rest of their life. Like, what are you doing? Right?
Mhm.
Any thoughts on that one?
I immediately thought, Mike, of the group that you're on the board with. What's it called?
Likewise.
Likewise, yeah, of getting Bible into school during school hours. I think is the big thing with that, so.
Yeah. Household income trends. I mean, I don't have to, it's probably not a surprise to you. So average household income is 135, projected to grow to 156. This is household, not individual income. And so, I mean, obviously, we'll show something later on here, but like, it's obviously a growing, healthy, wealthy area. So 21% of the area are those between 100 and 150, 149. So that's the largest segment of that area. By the way, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but each one of these insights, you'll see like on the side, it'll tell you the pages of where that information is pulled from.
Okay.
You can reference it back and look at it, you know, because you could go back and look at, you know, these pages if you want.
Mhm.
Kind of see some information and what all it means. We're just giving you some of the highlights. So, so household children trends. So this is measuring homes with kids in them. What's the percentage are married couple homes and what are single parent homes? Now, I'll tell you, 23.9% are single parent homes. That is lower than state averages, and it's lower than a lot of times of what we see. Actually, knowing the area, I was actually surprised it was that high, to be honest with you. But it still represents about 37 homes in your search area that have single parents. So then you begin asking yourselves, okay, so what are we doing as a church to serve and minister to single parents? What does that look like? How could we leverage that for the gospel and just ministry opportunities to serve those that maybe it's difficult, you know, to care for a single moms, single dads that are caring for their kids. Any questions on that one? Okay.
Nope.
Remember, at some point we have to have a dialogue. It's not just okay. Marital status. So a couple of things we'll say about this. So about almost 60% of the population is married. It's the largest segment by far. One thing is that when you look at this, I'll show you this. Okay. So 57% married, only 8% divorced, small percent separated, and widowed 4%. But 27.5% are never married. Here's the thing I want to highlight for you. For some reason, they do this ages 15 and up. So there's a large percentage of the never married that probably shouldn't be married.
Yeah.
We're thankful that that's not.
So I don't know why they don't measure it 18 and up at least.
Yeah.
But they do it for 15 and up. And so
Guys are behind the curve.
I don't know who's doing youth ministry, but you better tell them to 15 they're eligible. I guess.
We'll keep it at 18. Make our work easier.
Yeah. 12 0.8% is what we would say experience a loss. So this is divorce, separation, or widowed. So you think about, almost 13% of this population, 15 and older, have are dealing with or have experienced some sort of loss in some way. And I can speak a little bit like my mom passed away 3 years ago. My dad, every day when I talk to him, I'm lonely. I'm lonely. I mean, there's rarely a day that goes by when he says, I miss her and I'm lonely.
Yeah.
So, and he's 82 and, so, adult education.
Our
What-
grief share, attendance. We do a grief share group on
We don't-
Sunday
We
evening.
we don't have that here.
It's not going right now.
That's in the,
Got it. And so
there's one that's at another church. Some of them are attending right now.
what was our numbers like? I mean, was there a half dozen, four?
Like 4 or 5, I think.
Okay, 4 or 5.
Well, I'll tell you, my dad went to one for a while and then they stopped it. And then the people kept meeting together because even though it was stopped at this church, they
Yeah.
still get together once a week at a restaurant. And, I mean, I'd seriously consider like, okay, how do we advertise that to the community and not just, just your people, but if there's something you could do to help people deal with loss. Adult education, this probably doesn't surprise you, but it's a significantly higher educational attainment than state averages. Significant. So 58.7% of this, so they judge us 25 and over, okay? 5 and up. So almost 59% have some sort of college degree. Okay. Whereas state averages are 37%, so almost 20% more, right? 75.8% have some sort of college experience, which for state averages is 57. Here's the big one. State averages for the state of Indiana for those who have not finished high school is 9.9%. Your area is 4.3%. So significantly lower. So I don't know if there's I read this and I would say, well, I mean, there's always opportunities to serve at maybe local schools if they let you in to help tutoring or whatever. It's probably not as a big deal, but it probably does mean you're dealing with more educated people. So what does that mean for your teaching, for preaching, for instruction of others? Any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's say that.
The further north you go in the county, probably the less that number is.
Some grading to that. So to speak. Yeah.
Right.
And I think we do have a lot of our Sunday school classes and Sunday evening classes are really geared towards challenging thinking, of going deeper in their faith. We're not really, it's not that we don't have cookies on the lower shelf, but there's a big tray of lasagna right next to it as well. So it's something where I think a lot of our classes really do have a lot of people that challenge others to think on different levels.
Yeah, good.
Comes a lot of people there are people that come to our church that feel missed. They don't have a Christian background or a church background, or they fall into this group of, again, we live in an area where there's, there are pockets right around us that don't have a lot of education, a lot of maybe what we consider success in life. And they come in and both the standard of dress and teaching leaves them feeling kind of like, I don't belong here. And so that is something that you have the whole gamut.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we could run some numbers of a smaller area if you ever read it, of what that looks like. This is pulling in from that whole 7.5 miles. But I understand what you're saying. Yeah, for sure. Population by employment, obviously more white collar than blue collar, but that's pretty standard. However, you have significantly more white collar than state averages and less blue collar than state averages. So it's a more probably business oriented sort of area and less trades oriented. However, I say that a lot of times in these places where there's this wide of a range, man, I mean, the area is needing more blue collar sort of jobs and occupations. And, be moving your kids if you want into the trades, man. So, okay. So insight number 10 is what we call mosaic segments. This is where we're going to spend a little bit of time because I'm going to try and explain some things. This is going to be the area where you guys as a team can go deeper and to study more and to look more. Okay. So the mosaic segments is how it's done by a company called Experian. You may have heard of them. They're a global marketing agency. What they try and do is thinly slice American culture into groups and then segments based upon all these things from basic demographics, social economics, location, financial measures, property characteristics, things like that. What they've done is they've kind of come up with 19 different groups. And inside each group, there's 3 to 6 or 7 segments. So there's 71 total segments of how they're trying to thinly slice American culture. How do people think? What do they wear? What do they, like companies like Starbucks may use something like this to say, hey, they'll pay $4 for a cup of coffee here, but not over here. Okay. If you look at your executive insight report number 10, this is going to give you a list of your top 15 mosaic segments in your area. I'm going to show you in a little bit how you can see all. There's 71 segments. There's, I think, 62 of them are represented in your community, in your search area. So again, this is just how do we thinly slice American culture? The number one for you guys is this. Now, there's all kinds of crazy names, and we're going to show you the usefulness here in a second. But it is what they call the F22 Promising Families. So this would be the group name. And then the segment name would be Fast Track Couples. Okay. So if I go back to this, you'll see F22 Promising Families dash Fast Track Couples. This is 8.76% of your area. Okay. This is, and I'm not advocating, I mean, I got my own opinions on this, and I'm sure Rob would know based upon some of the stuff he probably theologically knows where I'm at. But if you remember back, some of you may remember when Rick Warren planted Saddleback Church, he always talked about a Saddleback Sam and a Saddleback Sue. This was like a very niche, I'm going to use the word client for them, but a niche person that they're trying to reach at their church. Okay. This would be like going, we really want to really reach these promising families, fast track couples. And we're going to paint this picture of what does this person look like? Now, so you're like, well, what do they look like? I didn't send this to you, but in this, on this page, there's something called the Mosaic E Handbook. Okay. You can click on this link. When you click on this link, it'll open up this document, and it's 188 pages long. Some of you, your eyes just glazed over. What?
Or just that one group and segment.
No.
Oh, okay.
All of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be significant if it was just on the one. Yeah. Good question. So this is for all of them. They kind of go through with their characteristics, all that kind of stuff. But you can scroll through, and if like you scroll, so what they do is they go through all the groups first. So C, D, E, F. So promising families. So there's the F22 group and the F33. I'm sorry, the F group, and then the F22 segment, F23 segment. So you can scroll all the way down then to here, hold on, to the F, A, B, C, D, E, F. So F22, here you go. So these are active, upper or young, upper established suburban couples and families living upwardly mobile lifestyles. Whew. Did you get that? I'll go down one. I want to be somewhere in the middle. Okay. So these are people like key features. They're credit aware, comfortable spenders, active lifestyles, tech savvy, music lovers, football fans. This is like they're probably, so 51% would be like the early 30s, kind of young families, kind of make a pretty good living. You know, they have young kids. Over here in the channel preference, this is important to note. Okay. So I want you to think like a 100 is a baseline. If it's over 100, then that's how they receive advertising. If it's below 100, they don't. Okay? So what's interesting here, like these people like TV, so this would include streaming services, is 203. So 105 would be like direct mail. This radio, you're like, well, they don't listen to the radio, these people, but podcasting is included in this as well. Okay. But here's the big one, text messaging, 333. That's crazy high. So there are people that probably you sign up for a text message thing at your church. They would probably receive that. They'd say, yeah. They're going to say, text me, don't ever call me. Right? You ever have any of those people at your church?
Yep.
We have any in this room.
Yeah. So the @ sign there is obviously email and then social media. So they're saying don't even worry about social media, even though they're journeymen in their technology adoption. Okay. And so there's a second page that kind of walks through a bunch of different characteristics of household length of their, all this kind of stuff that you guys can look at. Okay. Now, your second largest one is B07, flourishing families across the ages. Again, kind of crazy names here. So let's look at the B07. So you can scroll up to the B07. And here we have flourishing couples, multi-generational families living a wide range of lifestyles in suburbia, kind of the middle 50s, probably somewhere in there. They're fluent, rooted in suburbs, multi-generational households, fitness club members, outdoor hobbies, charitable donors. They make a decent living. Home. They probably own their homes. Probably their kids are kind of towards high school, that sort of thing. These would be the ones, if you look at this. So like TV, no, under 100. Letters, the kind of right at just over that. I mean, maybe the direct mail stuff. Radio, don't even think about it. They're not podcasting. They're not listening. Maybe text messaging, but certainly email. They're going to answer their email, and they're probably on Facebook. Okay. Still there, but their technology is pretty good. I mean, this is probably like me. I mean, besides maybe the household income, but like this is like us, like we're my family. I mean, yeah. I mean, send me an email, shoot me a text. Probably not Facebook for me, but my wife, you know. I mean, I put something on Facebook trying to get someone to pick me up at the airport tomorrow night. I'm not even sure one person has seen it yet. So now here's what's interesting. So 8.22% of your community is in this. Okay. The next one is the A05 Power Elite. Here's what I'll tell you. The A group is the wealthy of the wealthy. It's the wealthiest of the wealthy people. And you have 7.28% of the A05. You have the A03 Power Elite, Kids in Cabaret, 6%. You have the Power Elite American Royalty, which is 4.24%. You have the Power Elite Platinum Prosperity at 3.26%. I think, and I looked it up, I'll show it to you later, about 26% of your area falls into that A group. This is the wealthy of the wealthy. So it'd probably do you guys well. to learn and study that group the most.
Mhm.
Now, any questions on that so far? You can see here like your top 5, like there's a chart here. We just circled, so high income, low income. So they're families and probably a little bit older, some of those, but they are all falling on that upper income thing for your top 5. Now, there was a guy, his name is Thomas Bandy, and he said, okay, this is great information, but what does this mean for the church? Okay. And so he wrote a study guide for every single segment for churches to think through and process. This is where I'm going to tell you, you should dig deeper. So down here, and this is again in your executive insight report, you're going to have a video, how to plan, how to use mission planning, some videos. But then there's this, the Mission Impact Mosaic Application Guide by Bandy. If you click on this, what it's going to do, it's going to bring you to this page right here. Okay. And there's all kinds of things that you can look at on like, what is the mission impact guides? How do we use them? This sort of thing. And then you can come down to the groups. You can go to F22. You can click on this. It's going to pull this up for you. And this is going to give kind of a summary. Again, it's not perfect. It's not inspired. It's not, this is not from God. This is just a helpful resource that you hold in your hands with open hands. I mean, there's some of it's going to be ridiculous because you're going to read some places like it's going to say, serve this type of coffee versus this type of tea. And you're like, okay, all right. Well, God's a little bit bigger than this, right? But it's going to give you some general characteristics as you're thinking through as a church. How do we reach people like this in our community? So, so they define this, the fast track couples, like with their religious perspective, looking for God through or with the eyes of a child. Like, so what they mean by that is their religious perspective is, well, I may come because my kids need to come. Right? They may be people that grew up in the church and have left the church, but now they have kids in a wheel, like in a stroller, a running stroller. And they're saying, maybe we need to take my kid back to church. Spiritual issues, feeling purposeless or overwhelmed, anxiety over emptiness and fate. So now it's going to give you a general comments on it, but then here's what it's going to do. You ready? It's going to take you in so leadership preferences. What are they looking for? And again, you're holding this with very open hands. Like these people, what are they looking for when they think about leadership? Hospitality, what are they, what are they thinking about? Worship preferences. What do they think about educational preferences? Small group preferences? What do they think about in outreach? Right? What do they think about in facilities? What are they thinking about in terms of financial preferences? And then, of course, the communication. This is what we, just talked about a little bit, where they're probably going to watch or stream. You could text message them, that sort of thing. Okay. So you can go that for every single one. What was the other one? B07, across the generations, right? So you can click on that. The religious perspective, an important part of a healthy lifestyle. So religion is a part of their healthy lifestyle. Their common spiritual issues, feeling broken, rejected. Oh, so it's similar than the last one. So this is what I'd say, take and compare these. And again, but they're going to have different sort of preferences. Here's what I recommend is that you take these top 10, maybe top 5, top 10, and you just read through not just the handbook, but then you read through the application guide and say, are there any nuggets that we can pull out? Is there anything that we see common amongst several of these? And then get together and talk about it. And where do we see this in our church? How do we see people acting like this in our church? What are some common generalities that we're seeing? This is the area where you could go deeper in and spend a lot of time as a group. Okay, so let me stop there.
Mhm.
Questions? I know
Yeah.
sometimes that can be overwhelming.
How do you strike a balance between being all things to all men and meeting people where they're at? You know, I see something like this and it's like, well, it's almost like we're trying to cater to a specific group. But that could also be then stated, yeah, but you're also trying to meet people where they're at. You don't want to be preaching and teaching without it being something that they're able to connect to where they live.
Yeah. I mean, the Apostle Paul said to the Jew, I want to be a Jew, to the Gentile, a Gentile. I mean, like, he's like, I want to, and again, I think sometimes that terminology of saying, you know, I want to meet people where they're at. I mean, like, sometimes that can be ripped away from good theology. Like, we're not trying to rip it away. We're not changing the gospel. We're not changing theology. We're not, like, at the end of the day, like I guess what I say is let the gospel be the offensive part. And if there's something we can do in the way that we communicate with them through text messages versus email, you know, if it's, they want a bulletin, but like, I remember at my church in Ohio when I tried to get rid of the bulletin, and it's, my goodness, it would have been like, said Jesus wasn't God anymore. I mean, like, his, you know, but when I look back, and I've done a demographic study for that area, and I'm like, they were all of them were super high in like, in this like direct mail thing. That's what they respond to. And so you can look at this and say, you know, like, print and paper, that's what they wanted. They wanted to walk out, even though none of them read the announcements. I'm telling you, no one, like people would say all the time, why didn't we ever announce that? Like, it's been in the bulletin for a month. Obviously, no one ever reads it. So let's get rid of the bulletin. It's just a waste of time and space. But they want something to grab a hold to. So I guess, Rob, I'd say, don't offend them in those things. Let the gospel be the offense.
Yeah.
So I guess, Rob, one thought I had, I know you guys have been talking about, you know, do we do a church plant someplace and that sort of thing, is maybe you don't change who you are here, but as you do a church plant, you look at those things to have that you're not just replicating what you're doing here, but you have a church that's completely different because it's got a different audience that you're looking at, and you take that into account when you do a church plant, rather than becoming a mega church, have multiple little churches that are each maybe a little different because you're reaching a different population.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that has to happen at some level. It depends where you plant. I mean, like, if you're planting downtown Indy, it's going to look a little bit different.
Yeah.
Right. This is what I always say. Like, I met with a guy one time, and he was planting in Manhattan, New York, and he wanted to launch big, like, facility. I'm like, you're raising millions and millions of dollars, when maybe house church model might actually work better in a church plant in New York City and Manhattan. I mean, like, so you have to think about where you're planting, and then what's the type of plant that best fits that. So when you guys get to that place, I mean, this is what we'd love to walk through. Like, when you find a location, let's do another intentional demographic study of that area in a smaller, like maybe a smaller circle, to say, you know, this is what we want to reach. And maybe it's more farmers up north, you know, of you guys, and it's more rural, who knows? But I think
one of the things that I think people can get nervous with is when we don't think of this as a church. And you're doing a really good job of trying to remind us, we're not looking at clients. We're looking at a target to share the gospel, to connect and communicate, right? And then care for these people. And so we're really asking, how do we connect and communicate and care for people in each of these groups that ultimately will not only come to Christ, but then mature in Christ. So I think that helps us say, well, I can change for that, right? If they don't perceive, if they don't communicate in this way, why wouldn't I change? I mean, frankly, you look at that, we do a lot of printing and stuff around here too. We've gotten away from that because again, our congregation doesn't want a lot of the printed stuff. So we are changing. Yet, and we do it. I think we've got to keep looking at it though. It's not what we get out of it. It's not that we grow in numbers necessarily or grow, in finances, but we're really trying to look for caring and communicating and connecting.
Yeah, that's good,
I'm
Steve.
not saying that's much for you, but as a reminder for us.
I'm a guy who spent my life in the middle of what you're doing right here.
Yeah.
TransUnion, this is
Yeah.
one of the 3 big credit agencies, and now that I love doing evangelism, I realize Holy Spirit doesn't really care about any of this. Because today I talked to 3 different groups, and one was an older gentleman who's infinitely older than me. We gave him $1 million bill several years ago and talked about the Lord and Kent's on his way to heaven. Helped me at Menards. And then the lady at checkout was mid-age, and I've always been afraid to talk to her. This is so cool. I said, well, I want to just give you a couple of tracts, these $1 million bills. And this is going to be really special for you today. And she said, you aren't going to believe it. Today's my 24th wedding anniversary. My husband and I are going to love this. So, and then I was at Chick-fil-A this morning with all the young people. So I'm an old guy. I don't buy green bananas anymore. But I know that God made me for 18 to 22-year-olds. That was my life, and it still is still the group I'm most comfortable. And I thought of brother Dan, who's with the Lord, standing in front of these schools with the sign and all these kids coming over. He just had a gift with kids. He begged to go downtown. I was doing evangelism. He went down there. He just begged to get me. And I just kept cutting him loose to Dan because he's got more wisdom in his little finger than I have in the whole body. So I think it's getting people to understand that people want to be loved, and they're really lost. Young people are coming to Christ, and if you've heard the statistics lately, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
They realize the world's totally screwed up. It doesn't look like they're going to get a future. And I don't care who's president. It looks like the end's coming, or they're going to blow the world up. So there's a desperation that you sense in them. And I just love that the difference is that board is full of stuff, and young people, it's a whiteboard. There's nothing there. So, I go into Costco. That's my favorite place to do evangelism. Everybody's selling TVs. They're going to talk to me, and I'm going to teach them about marketing, and we're going to talk about Jesus. And I thought I had this kid the other day, and then he's Jehovah's Witness. I go, whoa, man, you got a lot of work to do. How many houses have you hit this week? That's pretty rough. I said, you don't need to do any of that. It's grace. Just open that Bible. And so, I think it's just, we make it more complex, and it really is loving on people. But I think being ready to share. A lot of people love on people, but they don't know how to at least simply share the gospel.
Yeah.
And so if we can just, if I was going to summarize this, let's have a weekly prayer meeting, and if only 2 of us come, let's spend some time praising God first and praying, and see if God will fire these people up to just meet the people around them. Because my neighbors you talked about your neighborhood. We got drug dealers in our neighborhood. One of them moved out, and a cop moved in. Pretty happy about that. I actually wrote a letter on this one guy and said, listen, this guy, they've had arrests, all kinds of things in front of his house, ambulances. And then the Holy Spirit says, you got to go down and talk to that guy. And I shared the commandments with him. His eyes blew out of his head. Then he hid for several days in his house from me. Because he thought I was going to talk to him more about you. We're supposed to love our neighbors like ourselves. You got to expose yourself. You got to let people know. So that sign at Dan's funeral about Jesus 2024, I made those for every election. And Dan loved that. He was the sign guy anyway. But the whole neighborhood knows where I'm coming from, and they don't run from me.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is just, I think what we have here is something very special. I'm not embarrassed at all. I think we go pretty deep from the pulpit. I think we take people, and that is a little bit hard for the meat and potatoes person who says, I don't even know what you're talking about. But that's where making better connections with people maybe when they
and again, I'm sorry to cut you off. I mean, it's all about relationships, and I agree with you. I mean, it's about let's mobilize all of Christ's followers at the church to live on the mission that Christ has for us. And what we're saying with the mosaic segments is, and with hands open, I mean, like the Spirit of God is bigger than all of this, right? Like, but there is a way that people tend to think, generally like unbelievers, and God can open their eyes at any moment. But just kind of maybe just take some time as a group to say, okay, let's just get to know them a little bit deeper. But again, we put this word of caution in, like if you're in your church towards one mosaic, like if you went there and said, hey, we only want to reach the power elites, you know, then like you're really probably missing out on 110,000 people in your community. Right? Like, let's not make things so narrow with that. Let's just get a good idea of the round picture. I'll show you one more thing, and we'll come back to this here in just a second. This is the comparative report. So what this does is it's comparing the people plotted from the addresses plotted from your church with the whole of the area. So you guys, your people plot of this BO7 segment is like 24% of your church.
Wow.
Where the community is only 8.22%.
Yeah.
Fast track couples is 15.19, where the community is this. Bottom line is there's 62 mosaics present in your area. Your church had 16 of them represented. So that's telling me that your church, while it may be I don't know the ethnical makeup of your church, the racial makeup, it's not socioeconomically as diverse as the community in which it is.
That's what Stephen was saying
earlier
about some people coming in feeling uncomfortable because of immediately identifying, I don't fit here.
Yeah.
Could that be looked at in reverse, that maybe that's our strength, that we appeal that segment?
Yeah, for sure.
Something we're doing is appealing to that segment, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, you can see, so this is what they call the penetration rate. And this is, so you've only, I mean, even with that, you're only at 1.11% of the search area. Of that segment. So yes, I mean, again, you could sit there and go, we really want to target these 16 mosaics. Then great, praise the Lord, you know, and there's a lot of people that could be and be in your area that you could reach them with. So I'm just saying, take some time, think about it. This is a place to go deeper to.
So there's another 46, if I'm counting correctly, and do check my math, but there's another 46 that we're not even.
That are present in the area that you guys are
missing.
Yeah. And so you can, like this, so that other one listed just the top 15, this lists all of them. So you can see the zeros for your people plot.
Yep. There's
a lot of zeros. You have two that made it into the country fried pragmatics. I don't know what that, the N47, I don't know what that one is. They have some weird names.
Exactly what those are.
Only two?
Probably somebody from Kansas. I don't know.
You've got 3 in the Bohemian Groove. So that's kind of interesting.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Anyway. Hey, for the sake of time, let me keep moving here. Generations, millennials are the most, Gen X second. I mean, they're right there, almost 1A, 1B. Next 5 years, millennials will increase. The Gen Z will be the largest projected in the next 5 years. If you haven't read about Gen Z, you probably should. 2 things I'd recommend. Barna has a book on the Gen Z, which I'd recommend. He actually calls them screenagers, which are great. But it's not because of what you think, because like my kids grew up, well, even probably, millennials grew up on screens, but the Gen Z are the first one growing up with their parents on screens. And so the second one, and I don't really promote Kerry Newhoff a lot. He has some good things in his podcast and stuff, but he had one a couple years ago on cracking the code on Gen Z, which I would highly recommend. One of the things they talked about in that is that it's like 70 to 75% of high schoolers believe they're going to be entrepreneurs, which I'm looking at everyone in the room here. I mean, like, we all probably realize that's not going to happen, right? But that's what they're, and so Gen Z, they come into the church and we say, we fit inside our box. But they have this spirit of mindset of like, I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to create new things. And so just thinking about like, we're so reluctant to hand the keys of the kingdom over to someone who's younger. I use that word, keys of the kingdom, not in a spiritual sense, but in a leadership sense. So anyways, a couple things there for you to look at. Okay. The next one the next two, I'm going to go through really, really quick, just highlight a couple things. So the religious insight and the ministry insight reports have to do with just beliefs about God, Jesus, social concerns, and then ministry practices. Again, this is the quadrennium report that's done every 4 years, and it's being done right now in 2025. So it should come out probably middle of the year to end of this year. And I'll be glad again to send you the updated numbers on these. What we realize through these is compared to national averages that your search area it's almost even, but slightly towards probably traditional views of God and Jesus, but very slight. It's pretty similar to national averages. So for instance, God's love invites the world into a loving relationship. 64.6 agree versus national average 62.3%. They don't define who God is, right? Like, like in this one, I'm unsure or undecided whether a God exists, 17.3% versus 17.5%. So I believe there are many gods, 11.7% versus 13.3%. There's significantly lower in your area than national averages of non-Christian religious people. So you think Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, although there are some that are coming.
Yeah.
And, we'll show you there at the end. Here's kind of some things, some movements that they saw from 2017 to 2021. So again, some slight increases and decreases. Like I'm unsure, undecided whether a God exists. We see it. Oh, that's not supposed to be a C. There's a percentage there. So 17.33%. I believe there are many gods actually increased from 7.5 to 11.7. So that's concerning. It's still below the national averages, but you're seeing kind of maybe some movement away from some spiritual things. While we see movement towards some spiritual things in other places, we see something like that. And so maybe there's like spirituality, not necessarily obviously truth in scripture. Okay. Any questions on that?
Nope.
Beliefs about Jesus. So I'm not going to read all these to you guys, but these are just some highlights where, Jesus actually rose from the dead, as the Bible teaches. 55.7% all agree versus national averages. So slightly higher. We see kind of a movement again, kind of in good. Jesus is the only way for human salvation from sin. From 2017 to 21, we saw a move from 44 to 46%. So it's good. But here's a couple big ones. And this obviously happened during COVID from 2017 to 21. We saw some rapid shifts happen, but like belief in Jesus does not require participation in church. We saw that grow from 52 to 66. Again, people are like, well, I don't have to go to church anymore, right? I can just watch it, stream it. People in the church do not behave as Jesus would behave. 29 to 61%, massive shift.
Yeah.
Again, we saw just a lot of ugliness that happened between 17 and 21 in our country.
Hmm.
Social moral issues, fairly similar, a little bit more conservative, probably than national averages. Like abortion should become illegal, 28% versus 26%. I thought this was interesting. We must be good stewards of the environment, even if it means restricting natural resource development, 63 versus 61. I just think about Carmel and all my friends there that, recycle and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, they do that here in Cicero too. Is it a big push?
Oh, yeah.
Recycle.
Yep. Separate barrels.
Do they charge you separately? Is it required?
I'm sure we get charged.
Right, somewhere.
Pay for it somehow.
It's in our,
Yeah, it's in our tax.
We're paying for it.
Yeah. In Northeast Ohio, where I live, it's like you have your garbage fee. Then if you want to recycle, it's another fee on top of that.
Mhm.
I'm like, well,
No.
Yeah.
goes in the garbage too. So there's some good movements here, like marriage relationship between one man and one woman only from 2017 to 2021. It actually increased. Same-sex marriage must remain legal and protected, but that increased as well. So you have kind of this variance of like maybe confusion.
Yeah.
Traditional marriage as a social institution is becoming obsolete. That dropped again. So, but here's a big one. Children should be raised by mother and father only, if possible, from 39 to 64%. I don't know how you guys have necessarily experienced the LGBTQ movement in your area. But we have a seminar that kind of helps churches know how to build grace and truth relationships with those in the LGBTQ. And if it could ever be of a benefit to you and your church, just let us know. Okay, religious preference. Mainline Protestant, 34.2%. Catholic, 26.5%. Nuns, 23.1%. Other Protestant, 10.8%. By the way, Baptists would fall into the mainline Protestant category. Thoughts on that? Is this kind of what you guys feel and see?
Is that large Catholic?
Yeah, I thought Catholics are more like 14 to 15% nationally.
Yeah, but in our area,
Yeah.
you've got major, some really big Catholics. In our neighborhood, half of our
Yeah.
cul-de-sac.
I was gonna
is
say,
Catholic.
our street is so Catholic.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Drive by the Catholic church, it has more people in the parking lot on Sunday morning than any other church
Mm.
that I drive by. I drive by 3 different ones.
There is some movement right now, though, because people are getting pretty upset with the Holy Father.
Right.
A lot of the Catholics are just saying, maybe this is the worst.
Right.
And you always got John 3:3 working for you.
But that doesn't really surprise me. Of those who have a religious preference.
Mhm.
Reach the Catholics who put a statue of Mary in your yard or.
So
Somebody's backyard when there's some house.
Oh, yeah.
Statue or something.
one thing I want to point out to you guys, these two numbers right here are flipped. And I don't know why. These two categories.
Can't read it. None and.
Sorry, those numbers are flipped. It should be the other non-Christian religious is 5.13. And the nuns, no spiritual preference, is the 19.74. Well, that's 10 years prior. 5.4 and 23.06. So those numbers are reversed. So what we've seen is an increase of 3.5% almost of the nuns in the last 10 years, decrease in Catholic and Orthodox by almost 3%, historic mainline by 1.5%. There has been a growth in the other Protestant category. This would be like non-denominational, charismatic assemblies, things like that. But most of those people, again, we see this most everywhere across the country. People are leaving historic mainline churches mostly and becoming nuns. They're leaving the church, and the nuns are on a rise. Any other questions, thoughts on that?
Well, so when you think about people leaving mainline Protestant, or yeah, a lot of mainline denominations, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a wonderful thing if they're walking away from a church that has abandoned the truth.
Right.
And so to see heretical, just disastrous denominations dropping in numbers, that's actually not a bad thing. Now I know we look at it, we're like, well, they become nuns. True, for the moment they have, but that's because a lot of them have never really heard the gospel. They've never, so there's, I think, tremendous opportunity. Just like when someone leaves Mormonism,
Right.
they don't run to biblical Christianity. They usually
Right.
run to atheism.
Yep.
And then, later, often, or Lord willing, often get drawn into the truth.
Yeah.
So yeah, so to see the nuns increasing, that's, in one sense, that's kind of a neat opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of, if you haven't heard of, I jot this book down, The Great Dechurching. It's worth a read. Okay, guys, it's called The Great Dechurching, and so it's basically it's basically telling the story of those that have left the church. I forget what the numbers are. Is it it's basically like of the 25 million that have left the church in the last 40 years, or is it 40 million have left in 25 years? I always get those mixed up. But regardless of that, they kind of categorize them, and because they did a big national survey. But I mean, their outtakes on that is basically invite them into relationship. Like, a lot of them will return to church if they're connected to people that love them and care for them. And so it goes to my brother back here that was talking about evangelism. Like, yeah, go share the gospel, but build relationships that can bear the weight of truth as we talk about the gospel with them, right? So that they
Evangelism is dead, though. People are not finding it. They're just not finding. You start me with the label, and maybe I'll find out about God. Who knows? This could happen.
Yeah.
I grew up in a denomination, will go unmentioned, but it caused me more trouble than it would have been if I would just cracked open a crack and came to Christ on my own.
So this area of none does that also include those who would identify as spiritual, not religious?
Yeah, that's the none of the above. Yeah. So it's NONE, not NUN.
Right. Yeah, that'd be the Catholic part again.
Yeah. So in one report in Hamilton County, which I know is bigger than your search area, but they class about 60% is classified as unclaimed. 208,000 people are classified as unclaimed in Hamilton County.
Meaning no church attendance? Or what's
Yep.
that?
Yeah, they're not connected to a church. So, I mean, just sit and process as you look at the darkness in your community. Like, pray over that. Pray over the 208,000 that are in your county that don't know Christ. Well, there's probably more than that, because I'm not assuming the other 40%, as we shared. I mean, they may be connected to church, but they may not be connected to gospel preaching churches. So what we can say is that this is a minimum, right? Like 208,000 people that are unclaimed by a church. Like, let that darkness of your community break your hearts. It makes sense. So this is from the ARDA, that's 60%. So go back to the Religious Insight Report. It's estimated that 39.9% are are part of a religious community. So again, we have two different documents saying very similar things. Okay. National average is 35.4, just to let you know. So your area is more churched than national averages. Don't get scared off of that when you think of church planting, because we need more churches, especially more Bible preaching, gospel centered churches. There's still less churches today than per capita than there were 100 years ago. Participation has been dropping. And only, so of that 39.9%, only 19.4 of them says that the religious faith is of utmost significance. So again, what this is telling me is, again, we have about 40% of your community is saying, yeah, we're involved in a religious community, but only 20% of them are saying it really means something to me. So the door is open. I mean, like there's a lot of lostness around you.
Yeah.
Any questions on that? Thoughts? Hey guys, life concerns. This is Ministry Insight. I'm just going to let you read them later. I mean, they're just comparing to national averages. I don't need to just read numbers for you, but we just pulled some off the page. This is the pages it came from. And those of you that like numbers can sit there and read those more detailed, or you can just read a couple summaries of them, you know. One page, I'll tell you, page 10, it gives kind of the top life concerns, you know, ongoing impact of COVID, social political tensions, you know, health crisis, illness. Those are all kind of pretty significant, strong concerns of people. There's a whole section on the reasons for non-participation in a church, and I'll let you guys just look through those. So they actually break it down by those outside the church and those in the church who are thinking about leaving the church. And, you know, from wasn't relevant to my life, you know. Here's one interesting thing. 12.4% says that they did not attend church because they've never been invited. Why don't you guys just think about it, like put an email out to your people today and say 12.4% of the people in their communities don't attend church because they've never been invited, and say invite them for Easter Sunday. You know, go invite 6 people and one of them will probably say yes. Inside the church, there's just some different things. You know, people say we're moving, or we can't find the right faith community, or wasn't relevant to my life, which is significantly higher than national averages. Page 20. Let me just scroll down there so you can see one thing here. The reasons why people are thinking about not participating in church, like moving from inside the church to out, is they don't feel welcome. Number one. So your welcome teams, your engaged teams, whatever you call them, like emphasize that, like really trying to make people feel like they're home. Again, warm 82.5% said that warm and friendly encounters at church are by far the most desired preference.
And so, this is for our area or our church?
7.5 miles around your church. So smile, be engaging, love people. And if you're one of those people that is kind of like a little not as friendly, then maybe the welcome team isn't for you. Okay. I'm going to give people that warm.
We joke about that, but we have a couple that's up for, they just joined in the past year and looking at being a deacon. For the first month, the only people that talked to them were the welcome team, and they were just about ready to leave because they felt like the church was extremely unfriendly. But others don't have that, but I'm just saying, we need everybody beyond the welcome teams to be friendly and genuinely hospitable. Or there are people who just, especially in the older groups, I think, they get lost and just overlooked. But it's an important part.
We used to do, when I was pastoring, I don't know if you guys have ever done this, or maybe you do, but we used to do a name tag Sunday once a month. We had people at the doors when they're walking in, like with name tags, like, and just writing them out for them. Hey, what's your name? Rob. Hey, it's so nice to meet you, Rob. And they write Rob on it and give them a little, my name is kind of, and then we'd have extended greeting times, and just to let people know, like, because there's a lot of times, I don't know if you guys have ever felt this, but like, you haven't talked to people, a certain person, but you don't know them. And so you're going to go up to them and go, hey, I've never met you before. Like, are you new? And they're like, no, I've been here a year and a half. And so like that fear paralyzes us from actually going up and talking to someone that we don't know their name, But basically we did the name tag Sunday for me because I'm terrible at names. That was my secret way that I could get to know the visitors. So, hey, let me show you one thing about the comparative report. So we mapped 158 households inside that 7.5 miles. Great. There's 42,000 households in that 7.5 miles, meaning that you guys, as a household penetration rate, like you guys are reaching 0.37% of that search area. So start asking yourselves, could we reach 1%? Like, would God allow us to reach 1% of the 7.5 miles around us? And what would we do if we reached 1%? Or maybe it's 0.8%, or maybe it's 1.5%. I don't know. You guys decide that, but say, we want to make a dent in the darkness in our local community. So what does that look like? This comparative report, you can look at it. If you have questions on it, you can let me know, but it goes through basically every one of those executive insight metrics, and it compares your people with the whole of the area. Trying to think here. Yeah, so it has you guys at about 81. No, that's the whole. I'm sorry. Of ethnicity. But anyways, you can read through those. It goes through all the mosaics. And then it does at the end, it gives kind of the average income for each mosaic, and then kind of walks through if people gave 2%, 3%, like what could have, and again, that's only searching the people inside that of, again, averages. Okay. Well, we have like 3 minutes left. Or 5 minutes. I'm just gonna kind of walk through. These are some maps from the ARDA, and you can look through these. All these links are live. 91.6% speak English in their homes, meaning there's like 8.4% speak a language other than English. So there are some people groups in your area. Obviously, Spanish is the largest. Again, this is that map that we looked at earlier. 6.8% are foreign born in your community. Mexico being the largest, Venezuela being second, then India, China. Here's just kind of some metrics on reaching people groups. I won't spend a lot of time on it because there's not a lot in your area. Some Chinese, French, of course, German. We're all German, probably. Ministry of subcultural groups like police, fire, prisons. I know you have some prisons down like around your area. Like, what does that look like? Whoops. There's, Lifeway Research talks about 84% of churchgoers agree that Christians are responsible to minister to the incarcerated. So could you guys develop a ministry? I don't know, maybe you do, or maybe there's other ministries already going on in the jails and prisons that you guys could engage in. So besides that, there is on the southern side, I didn't put a picture in it, but on the southern side of your search area are a few Islamic mosques or Islamic centers.
Yep.
And just outside are some Hindu temples. And so you begin to ask yourselves, okay, are our people mobilized and equipped to build grace and truth relationships with Muslims and Hindus? And if not, well, we'd love to help with that, right? Like that we can help you with some seminars and stuff on, I mean, look, if a Muslim moves in next to you and you're like, man, I really want to reach them. And so you invite them for dinner and serve pork chops. I'm just telling you, that's not a bad thing. Right? We can laugh about it, but there's a lot of Christians that don't know that.
Right.
Yeah.
What are the door openers, door closers? So guys, that kind of takes us to the end. Just a couple of things, population, students. These mosaics, I think you need to dig into them, especially towards that A group would be important. Here's just a outline of, we did this at our church where we used this information, created a PowerPoint that we used for just a concert of prayer. So we had our people pray over the demographics of our community. And so, just kind of the outline of what we used. And and then just a few things about Every Ethnē. You guys know that who we are. So I know it's a lot, man. I know it's like a fire hose. I'm going to email this to you, Rob. You can blast it out to everyone else. And then usually what we do is we say about in a month or so, I'm going to follow up with you and say, hey, what questions you have? How have you guys been able to process this? I know it's a lot, but I'll say this with any assessment, okay? Anything that you do, if you take this information and put it up on a shelf and go, well, that was good, and get on with the busyness of life, it's going to be minimally effective for your church. But if you say, let's dig in, let's talk, let's pray, let's engage, you can see more fruit as you're making more decisions based on that. So, any other questions?
No. I mean, just chewing on a lot of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's great. Thank you.
Is it okay if I use Keynote instead of PowerPoint?
Absolutely.
All right.